when we're overloading now the addition symbol, frankly, the logic has to make sense first. For example, adding two students together, their data together, doesn't make really any, does it create a new student? No. There's really no application for adding two students together. There's just no logical reason for that. Hence, why I'm doing a new class called pi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of pieces of two pies and add them into one pi that now contains both of those pieces in them. The overall setup is very similar to what we did in our overloaded of the assignment operator. So you notice the overall code for everything set up here is pretty close to what the equal was. But remember, now the logic is different. I'm not copying all the values over. Matter of fact, this is not a copy. Sure doesn't look like this one, and it sure doesn't look like that one either. Okay? It's its own new value. So that's why in this overall function, you'll actually see I'm creating a new pi piece because I'm returning something that's new, something that's changed. And then all I'm doing is, here's their plus, we're adding the two pieces from the other sides. So that's how we're going to use this very simple code. Now notice again, the data member for pi, by the way, was pieces. There was only one data member for that. I am adding the two pieces, which have been one for this one and what, 4 for that one. I'm going to add those two together, and my new pi is going to have 5 entire pieces in it. But it is going to be a new pi. It is going to be new. Now, in the overall header, looks very similar to what you had before, but the only thing is we have an addition sign, we have our pi and our ampersand for x because we are going to be accessing those values. Now, in the main, how would I do that? Well, frankly, I'm going to be doing a lot of different things here. I'm going to have cherry plus apple, that's an overload of the plus using this, and I'm using the overloaded equal sign to gather all the information and then assign it to a new value called together in this exact standpoint. Whew. A lot of, notice that was a lot more when it came to understanding logistics and the application than it was the code. Code's not all that big, but making sure you understand how everything works together in getting that together, that's the critical part when we're overloading the plus, maybe a minus sign, all those things. The logic has to be there first. The code's not all that hard. Matter of fact, I want you to add 2 containers together. This won't be hard. Now, we have to worry about 4 different data members this time on how things work out. So that should be interesting. And we probably should do a check to see if, well, they can be added together. To be very honest with you, I don't think I did in the answer. But I'll talk about that here in a minute. So work on this. Use what I've given you. Again, use the template. This one is going to be larger when it comes to the container because we have more data types that are in there. So just heads up. What I have for you is a solution, but there is a caveat to that. This is basically, again, a copy and paste from what I had for pi. Nothing really changed for the overall prototype. All I did was change from pi to container. This didn't really change it except for, like I said before, it's going to have more data members in it. That's it. We had max storage, current storage. By the way, you'll notice how I kind of did this in two different steps of collecting everything first. Notice I actually changed the current storage on the other two containers to 0 because it makes sense. Pretend you're pouring, my daughter loves pouring water into different containers. They're now empty and the bigger ones got all of it together. So I set them to 0, okay? And then I created my new container with all of those values put together and then, well, return from there. All of this is okay. There's nothing wrong with this. This compiles, this runs. I'm okay with it to one. That's still the caveat. One thing that's bothering me. But let me get to the overall setup here. In the main, if I created a container of cars with a couple of people that are in there, then I should be able to, frankly, do that when it comes to car number 3. I'm adding the 2 cars together to dump into car number 3. And it looks like a bunch of people. It has a capacity of 8. It's going to be 4 in there, and then go from there. Now, here's my caveat. It's actually the logic. It has nothing to do with the code. The code is set up fine. It does the copying over. But there's 2 things that we have to worry about. Number 1, going back to my daughter. She's learning, this is usually on top of the deck, where she's pouring the water in. What if the container is not big enough? We need to make sure that our new container has enough max storage that it can handle those 2 items that we're about to put in. We don't do a check in there at all. We don't do any validation for that at all. We should. What if either one of these containers that we're going to put in here, what if they did not, one couldn't mix with the other one? What is it, a sodium and hydrochloride, you put them together and boom, you're dead, okay? I didn't check that they could really mix. That's another validation that I really should do. Again, notice it's not really about the code, it's about the logic and it's about the application. So while this does do the job, I wouldn't want you to work as a chemical engineer with this, let's put it that way, okay? Get used to setup, understand that you might have to do some validation when it comes to this type of setup, and I'll leave it at that, okay? So there's your answer. Kind of convoluted answer for overloading the addition symbol for container.